let's go to the biggin.
Let's
go to the biggin. 3:30, CBS, Tennessee, number 1. Newly minted number 1, Tennessee, on the road at number 3, Georgia. This is a big deal.
Moist.
continue.
Yeah, man. This is a big deal. Line opened at 9. It came down a little. It's still at 8 in favor of Georgia. That's a lot. That's higher than I expected. I read a lot online this week doing my homework. It seems like it's more than a lot of folks expected. So as you would expect, 97%, 97% of the money is on Tennessee here. Wow. Folks feeling very similar in that regard, that this is too much. The Vols are obviously very good, but there is, I think, a little bit of narrative driving the bet here, driving the rooting interests here, because Tennessee's new in this conversation. They've been down for a while. Folks don't want to root for Georgia unless you're a Georgia fan. You want to see somebody new, right? That's been the problem with the playoff and the SEC as a whole. It's always the same teams.
Yeah.
Want to see somebody new. I think some of that is driving the bet, some of the rooting interest on the Tennessee front. I've heard a lot of comparisons to 2019 LSU with
Certainly.
Tennessee. I don't know if that's the right comparison. I don't know what the right comparison is, but it does feel good to be on that bandwagon. You know, that was one of the takeaways from the 2019 LSU thing, where if you got in early and if you liked them early, if you got in with Joe Burrow and then they just went off, you felt like a genius. You felt like you found something before other people did, and it felt good to be part of that. So I understand why people are jumping aboard the Tennessee bandwagon in this case. I thought you posted something very interesting on Monday.
Yes!
On our Twitter feed. The first time ever, Dan.
I know there's a first time for everything.
You posted the points per drive numbers.
Yes.
On our Twitter feed, which usually I make fun of you for. There's no good reason for that. I mean, these are good numbers.
They're great numbers.
They're solid numbers.
Only against
Tennessee,
FBS teams minus garbage time. Yeah.
Tennessee and Georgia both have 3.9 points per drive. What that means for the layman out there driving in your car, it means that these offenses are almost equally efficient. The difference between the two is tempo. And this is something I brought up last week when I talked about the Georgia Bulldogs. Tennessee wants to run you off the field. Georgia has a slower, longer, more methodical approach to its offense. In practical terms, Tennessee is the orange Lamborghini. Georgia's like the Honda with a spoiler, right? Like, they're just very practical. They get the job done. They get
Very
the most
practical.
mileage.
Yeah.
And they're not going to break down. They're very solid. So I don't want to oversimplify any of this stuff. I have comprehensive thoughts on why I am betting one side or the other. Where are you at here with Tennessee versus Georgia?
Well, first and foremost, the probably most talented defensive player in this game is out for the season, announced this week, in Nolan Smith for Georgia, who has been their Mr. Havoc coming off of the edge, former number 1 overall recruit who came back, I think it was 4th year. So he is a missing piece. This is a deep defense. This is a very, very good defense. This is not last year's defense. This is not an all-time defense. This is not an all-time offense. Whereas what Tennessee presents on offense is basically better than what anybody else presents doing anything this season. And so for them to be, what'd you say, 9.5 point underdogs?
It opened at 9.
Yeah.
And it's jumped around a little bit. It's currently at 8.
Okay. So somewhere above or right around a 1 possession, 8-9 point spread here. I don't know. I watched Tennessee, Alabama, and the Vols met the moment with a wobbly knuckler at the end. But that offense against what I still think is a good Alabama defense, maybe one that had some issues in the secondary that specific day. But Tennessee met the moment. It was not too big for them. It was the biggest Tennessee game in 16 years, whatever. And they met the moment once again. Georgia meets it for a quarter, meets it for a half. Obviously, they were terrific against Oregon in the opening game of the season. Really strong opening the game against Florida last week, but led Florida back into the game. I think Tennessee is the atmospheric river of the week, right? They are the current. And so I am just going to stick my oar in the water and say,
Settle.
I'm going Tennessee. I'm going Tennessee to cover. I am not positive in the outcome of this game. I tend to trust a home team with a still very good defense if it's tight late to get that stop. But when I see Hendon Hooker throw the ball downfield, like a teardrop coming from the heavens, falling into the hands of Jalin Hyatt, I think to myself, I'm not going to be the one to bet against that ability. I'm not going to be that person. So I'm going Tennessee here, plus the points.
On some level, I think it's a math problem for Georgia. Maybe just don't let the unstoppable offense have the ball that much.
Sure.
Right? If Georgia's able to control the pace of this game and continues stringing long drives together the way they have all season long, they're going to win this game. That's how Georgia wins games, especially big ones against a team like Tennessee with a really potent offense. Where they could run into trouble, I think, is if Tennessee can either stop or curtail them a bit on the ground, because the Vols' rush defense is actually quite good.
Yeah.
It's the strength of this defensive unit. Another thing that gets the Dogs into trouble is turnovers. And we talked about it last week. They had the 3 turnover game, but on the season, they're 58th nationally in turnover margin. And per the Bill C numbers that we get to look at, they're lucky it's not a little bit worse. So again, it works great if you're able to run your system, if you're able to put those long drives together and eat time off the clock, limit the number of chances Tennessee gets to, have Hendon Hooker throw those teardrops from the gods.
Right.
But some of it goes out the window a little bit if the rushing game gets bottled up or if you decide to turn the ball over. Those are the 2 things that I think I'm going to be looking for on the Georgia side. The other thing that I'll call out on the Georgia side is that I think the Dogs are better up front than any team Tennessee has played yet.
You think they're better than what Alabama offers off of the edge?
On the line. I think they're better.
Man. Dallas Turner, Will Anderson.
I'm just talking on the line. Will Anderson, they move him around. They use him in different capacities, right? But purely along that front 3, front 4, I think I favor Georgia. And I'm curious to see how or if that changes the complexion of this game, if at all. If it does hurt them that Nolan Smith is out for the year, I think we would see that in some of the intermediate passing game, obviously getting some pressure on the quarterback and what have you. That, we're going to have to take a look at that. But for all the talk of Hendon Hooker and Jalin Hyatt, the Vols are actually a very good team on the ground as well, not just stopping it, but rushing. And I think that's part of why they're so good through the air. Because the Dogs are built a little bit differently in the front 7, if they go out there, if they shut down that ground assault, again, or if they curtail the ground assault from Tennessee, I am curious to see if there are any downstream effects on the passing game. Like maybe it won't make it quite as effective. And Tennessee, a very highly efficient offense, if they're not able to fully operate at maximum capacity, what does that do against presumably the best team, one of the best teams they'll play all year? So I don't know. I'm going to go Tennessee with the points, like you. I think this is a 1-possession game one way or the other. I do like Georgia to win the game outright and keep the scoring down. I got it something like 33-28. Like a lot of long Georgia drives, probably a couple turnovers, maybe comes down to a last possession for Tennessee. I expect this to be a good football game.
Yeah, I think it's 38-34 somebody.
Yeah, I could see it. Great game, though, right? What a great game.
Oh, my God. Cannot wait. So, look, we haven't mentioned the name Brock Bowers, who's basically the entirety of the explosive passing offense, which really doesn't exist for Georgia this year. But when he gets in space, he might even be the best single player in this game. We have Hendon Hooker. We have Jalin Hyatt. We have stars all over the place. I'm a little bit worried still if Stetson Bennett does not have an A-plus defense wearing red and black. I'm a little bit worried that if he is asked to win this game, if it's clear that it's going to be a back and forth track meet by the middle of the second quarter, that is a struggle for me to get excited about Georgia's chances in this game.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do agree with that. I think for me, the thing that I will be most interested in on both fronts is the rushing attack.
Totally.
Can Tennessee stop Georgia? Can Tennessee get theirs on the ground against Georgia? that to me will dictate a lot of this one. But I'm with you. I mean, there's just so much firepower on the Tennessee side on offense that 33-28. I like them to cover.
All right, fair enough.